What is going on here? So it is imperative that you understand what is happening inside your camera and flash, because the thing with the flash, especially with these guys, these Speedlights, it can go sideways really fast. It can really go sideways fast because there are so many different variables and things happening that, again, from shot to shot, you see all these different things happening, and sometimes you get stuff that's all blurry with a ghost floating through it. Like, what is that? You know, all that stuff. So we need to know what exactly this flash is doing and exactly what the camera's doing so we can control everything. So that's what we're going to do. So we need to start at one place, and that is this. When we add a flash, any kind of a flash, when we add a flash to our camera, on-camera flash, off-camera flash, the pop-up flash, flash of any kind, anything that flashes, one exposure becomes two exposures. That is the key. There are two different exposures. There is the ambient light, right? That's the light that's sort of floating around out there that we can't control. We have the ambient light. And then we have the light that is coming from our flash. And we have to control those two things independent of each other. And we can. So we can say, I want to have more ambient light, less ambient light. Brighter background, less background. I want to have more flash, less flash. I want the ambient light, you know, and not only do we have two different exposures, we have two different qualities of light now to pay attention to. So our ambient light can be hard light, and our light from our flash can be soft light. Or the ambient light can be soft, and the light from the flash can be hard. Or they can all be hard or all soft. And we get to choose all those things. The important thing to understand is they're separate, and we can control them independent of each other. And that's the fun, and that's what we're going to do. So let me give you an example of this. So I went to the park. Now these pictures that I'm about to show you, I did this in about, I think, 5 or 6 minutes, something like that. So I actually was sort of in a panic because I knew I needed to show this, and so I called one of our models and said, please come to the park. We have about 10 minutes to do this. And she showed up, and we went click, 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 and we said thanks, and we were done. And this is what we did. And so we can do that really, really fast. Okay, so this first shot right here, we have our ambient light is the same. So look at the tree. This is the big giveaway. The flash exposure is the same. So you see on, this is LaShawn, her face is the same brightness, right? The same amount of light on both pictures. But look at the tree in the background. On this one on the right side, or left side over here, the tree is much brighter than it is on the right side. Okay, see how we were able to change that? And this really went like this, click, 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 done. About that fast. So we can control those two things independent of each other. And we can do the same thing with the light from our flash. So check this out. Now, look at the tree. The tree is the same exact exposure. But on the front, we were able to change what our model looked like. So over here, really dark, underexposed, not the appropriate amount of light. On the right, looks awesome, right? So we can change those two things. So John, we need the whiteboard here in a second. So we're going to talk about how we do that and an understanding of the ambient light and the light from the flash. And to do that, I'm going to draw something here. It's going to be awesome. And I'm going to flip this around so I have the white side. And do we have light markers for this? That would be cool. Also, we have markers coming out here, I hope. So I'm going to do an excellent beach doodle. If not, I'll have to describe it to you. You'll imagine it in your mind about how awesome it is, but we'll see. You know, it's always one of those things when we're doing a live show. It's like, oh, right, the actual markers for this. Oh, okay. Do we have any other colors, or is this the only one?
Find out.
Okay, if we have, oh, we do. See, there's Kelsey. Hey, Kelsey, come out here. Kelsey and John need to come out here and say hi. So Kelsey, you might remember from our last CreativeLive, she's my producer, and here's John Cornicello. He's going to be helping out. So when
matching hair.
And matching hair. Nice. So, okay, now you guys go. They're like, oh, okay. All right, we're going now. Okay, so I'm going to do the most excellent beach doodle. If you can find a red one, that would be even more awesome than just blue. And I'm so picky. Did you notice that? Oh, I need a whiteboard, and now I need stuff to write with. And then it's, oh, I need red and blue and green.
It's all for a purpose, Mark.
It is. I know. That's the fun part of this workshop, by the way, that I'm going to love, is there are so many different variables. We're going to stop a lot and go, what? Let's figure this out, and we'll learn stuff. Not with markers necessarily. This is awesome. I just need this one and this one. Thank you. Okay. It's my fault, by the way. I didn't tell them I needed different colors. Let's pretend, by the way, we are at the beach, okay? So this is water going down here. Jaws, maybe. I can't draw. But anyway, that's Jaws, right? Maybe, I don't know. We don't need Jaws. And on the beach, we have a model with flowing hair, okay? And then we have a tripod with a camera on it, with a flash on the camera, something like that. And then we have a big-headed person right here taking pictures, okay? So what we'll have, let's pretend that we have a big, bright sun, right? Here's our big, bright sun, and it's blasting light, blasting light. And this is, let's say, toward the end of the day, okay? By the way, guys from Seattle, that's the sun. It's a big, bright thing that floats around out there once in a while. So this is going to be lighting up all of this background right here. Now, if you take a picture normally with no flash, what will happen is the back of this person is going to be silhouetted, right? You're going to have all this ambient light. It's going to look great. And then this is going to be a silhouette, and it's not going to look so awesome. Or you're going to have a picture where the person is exposed and the background is just totally washed out, right? Totally washed out. So what we're going to try to do here is we're going to turn on a flash. All right, we're going to turn this flash on. And that flash, what it does is it illuminates the front of the subject. Okay, so we have, that's our two exposures, right? We have our flash right here. That's the flash. And then we have our light from the sun. This is ambient light right here. Okay? That's what we have. Now, this ambient light is something that is very interesting. So the ambient light, and let me just show this here on the screen. We have something that we have to react to the ambient light. Okay, this light right here. And the reason is that we can't always control it. Right? The sun we can't control. There are clouds moving in and about, things like that. And because of clouds and the time of day, ambient light has this tendency to change on us. And so this light right here, what we have to do when we start, we have to say, hey, Mr. Camera, let's figure out what we need to do with this stuff here to get a good exposure. That's where we need to start. We need to say, how do we get a good, proper exposure with this? And then once we have that, then we can take our flash and adjust it so that we have something that's either brighter than the ambient light or balanced with that or just a little bit under. But we have to start with this ambient light and make sure that it's good. And so we're going to do that now. We're going to start by looking at, which is going to be a refresher for some people, but stick with me on this, because once we figure this out, it's going to apply directly to this. And then we're going to start looking at how we can do that balance between those two things. And trust me, you'll go, oh, right, that's it. Okay, so let's first start with this that we've all seen in our photography lessons before. It's called the exposure triangle, okay? Stick with me on this. So we can take this, we'll take the aperture, shutter, and ISO, we'll move those around so we have these three things, and we need to understand what do these three things control. Now we really need to understand this because it's going to impact what happens with our flash later. Okay, so number one, the aperture controls quantity, right? Quantity. So it's looking at how much light is going through that aperture. So quantity, how much? Okay, the shutter opens and closes, so it controls duration. So how long does that stuff go through? Okay, this is critical when we come to talking about balancing our ambient light with light from our flash. Critical, critical, critical. These two things, understanding this is how much goes through, and this is how long that stuff goes through. Okay, we're going to find out something really important here. And then last, the ISO controls sensitivity. Okay, this really impacts everything. So how sensitive are we to all that kind of stuff? And so the way I think is the best to understand ISO is talking about my wife and myself. So if I'm at home in Phoenix and it's 102 degrees outside, which I think it is today, inside our house we have the fan going, we have the air conditioning blasting, and I'm usually just like, oh, it's so hot, right? And inside our house it's maybe 75, 78 degrees, something like that. I'm dying. My wife Diane is in the same exact place and she's freezing. She has like stuff on, she has a coat on, and so we have the same amount of temperature, same amount of heat or cool, but I am more sensitive to it, or she is more sensitive to the cool than I am. I'm more sensitive to heat, so our ISO is different. I guess her ISO is lower than my ISO. I need more cool than she does. Okay, and our cameras are sort of the same. So we could have the same amount of light, but one camera responds to that differently than another. Okay, and that's true of both ambient and flash. So once we adjust ISO, it will adjust how the camera sees both at the same time. Okay? So what we're going to do here is let's talk about this. How does the camera figure out how much light to let in? And how does it balance those three things? So somehow, mysteriously, when you put your camera on aperture priority mode or shutter priority mode or whatever, it knows, right? And even if you have it on manual mode, there's a little meter there that tells you what to set your dials and switches to, and somehow it knows how to tell you what it is. And so we might know, and I'm going to show you this thing right here, and it's this, that 18% gray is 100% wacky. Okay? That's my motto. 18% gray is 100% wacky. So what our camera does, let me just show you with this, is it has a little light meter inside there, and it looks at all the different light in the scene, all the darks, all the brights. So over here, it would look at it, you know, this white stuff here, and this gray, and this stuff over here, and it sort of puts it into a blender. And it just blends it all up, and it averages all that. It throws all the color away, and it averages those darks and brights and everything, and it expects everything to mix to a middle gray, which is 18% gray, sort of like this background right here on this presentation. That's what it expects. And things can go really wacky because your camera is stupid. Okay, your camera is really stupid. I know I'm offending people, but it's true. Your camera is not the brightest knife in the drawer, or the sharpest knife in the drawer, right? Brightest light in the ceiling? I don't know. It's not any of those. So your camera is stupid, and we have to help it out. I mean, it tries. It really tries, but it's dumb. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this thing right here, this TTL metering. This is why people love light meters, because they're not as dumb. They're still dumb, but not as dumb as your camera and its TTL metering. And so TTL, by the way, it stands for through the lens. That's what TTL is. So light goes through the lens, it goes into our camera, and guess what? TTL also stupid. Stupid. It doesn't know what you want it to do. You have to tell it. You have to tell it what to do. And so let me show you. I have this little diagram here to sort of illustrate what's going on. So through the lens works like this. Light comes in, that's that little yellow arrow. It travels through the lens. There it is. There's the mirrors inside this right here. And these mirrors, what they do is, this first one allows light to bounce up. There's this thing right here inside the viewfinder. It's called a pentaprism. It allows light to bounce around and come out. And that's how we see what is coming through the lens. Right? The light goes through there and we can see stuff. Inside up here, in this little area right here, inside the pentaprism on most cameras, that's where the light meter is. That's where it is. It's right up in there. And so as you're pointing the camera, moving it around, it's seeing everything you're seeing, and it's saying, okay, let's mix everything up to that little gray, and let's figure out how we should adjust our camera settings to get a proper exposure. Down here, some of that light goes through this first mirror. There's a little second mirror there. That's your autofocus. That's what that is. Okay? So here's the problem, and here's where things happen with the flash that gets wacky. And this is a preview. We're going to talk a lot about this here in a second. When you take a picture, those mirrors open, and when they open, the light doesn't bounce around anymore. So this light meter doesn't see the light when your shutters, the mirrors are up and the shutter's open. So when your camera's shutter is open, light meter shuts down. It can't see anything. That causes all kinds of problems with the flash, which we're going to talk about. This is foreshadowing. This is what that is. Okay? So what we're going to do is first I'm going to demonstrate to you how dumb TTL is. And so to do that, we're going to do this thing. We're going to do a wall test. There it is. Okay, so I've got this little thing. CreativeLive guys put this together for me. Guys and gals, there's both here. They're awesome. And so, John, if you can just give me this camera. Awesome. Do that.
This is the tether.
This is our Canon. And I'm going to do this with no flash. Okay, no flash to start with. Let's put that there. And if you're at home, please try this. What you need is just a solid black wall or a solid white wall or a panel, whatever. It just has to be black, has to be white. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting my camera on aperture priority mode. I'm going to put it at, let's see, ISO, let's do ISO 400. Sound good? Yeah, doesn't really matter. Okay, and then I'm going to put my aperture at 3.2. Doesn't really matter. right? And I'm shutting off my autofocus because it won't be able to focus on this. And I'm going to first take a picture of this white wall here. So I'm going to fill the frame and do that. So let me make sure my app, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to look right here at this white wall, taking a picture. Okay, now this is, hopefully will come up here on your screens at home, and I'll show you guys here. This is what? Gray. It's absolutely gray. That white wall, yeah, there it is. So this white wall is gray. See, it's stupid. It thinks that this is gray because remember, it's averaging everything out, and it thinks that this is gray. Now I'm going to take a picture of this black, right? So I'll just fill the frame again, take a picture of that. Okay, so the next picture that comes up, we know that it's black. Our camera is stupid, so there it is. They look identical. Isn't that weird? So can we show those side by side? We'll see if we can do some magic here and show them side by side. So we know one is white, one is black. But when we put these side by side, look at that. They're gray. They're both gray. So what's happening? It's that little blender thing that we talked about, where the light comes through the lens, and the camera is averaging that stuff, and it's saying this should average out to 18% gray, and it tells the camera to set its aperture and shutter or whatever to make it average out to gray. Now watch this. I'll take a picture of both of these at the same time. Now if I take a picture of both of these at the same time, what do you think is going to happen?
It'll separate the two.
Right, because it'll average them out, and black and white averaged out will be gray. And so let's take a peek and take a look. And I got to focus it now. Okay, so I had my autofocus off, so this will be a little bit blurry. But when this pops up, we'll see that something miraculous happens. Here it is. It's black and white, out of focus, like I said. And notice that the white is a little bit gray, a little bit underexposed. Yeah, so even that, not so right. Okay, so the camera is doing its best, but it gets it wrong over and over and over again. And that's what I say when I say your camera is stupid. What I'm saying is it's just doing its best based on how it was created to average things out the best it can to get this 18% gray. And we know as photographers, especially wedding photographers know this when they're shooting brides in a white, the white dress against a white wall. If they don't do some exposure compensation or do some things, they're going to have a gray bride. And guys in all their black tuxes in a dark room, if they don't do something, they're going to have a bunch of gray tuxes. And so you have to use exposure compensation and fix that. So our camera isn't so bright. We have to talk to our camera and say, I know that this is white and you think it's gray. So I'm going to use exposure compensation and tell you that this is white, and we can fix that. Now, because we know that we can do that stuff, guess what? That's how we control our ambient light and our light from our flash. We're going to use exposure compensation and do some things. There's some other things that we're going to find out when you have a person sort of back a little ways with our flash. The camera's trying to average the entire scene out, and we're going to get somebody that's like totally blown off. You know, their head's going to look like they explode, all that kind of stuff. That's what's happening, is our camera is trying to average all those things out, and it doesn't really work.